Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have a few updates to share about the January 6th investigation. First, the most recent and major news is that 34-year-old North Carolina resident and Marine veteran Charles Donohoe has taken a cooperation deal. This is significant because Donohoe was the leader of the North Carolina chapter of the Proud Boys, and he held one of their highest rankings in the group. With something that they call the fourth degree member. Anyway, there have been other plea deals reached with other Proud bigots, but so far it hasn't been anyone in leadership. And as you guys probably all know, members of the group have been indicted on charges that include conspiracy, and Donohoe is now the first to admit to that conspiracy. So Donohoe has agreed to plead guilty to charges of the conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, as well as assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers. His plea deal also states that, quote, as a member of the Proud Boys since 2018 and an attendee at prior national rallies attended by the Proud Boys, Donohoe knew and understood that some members of the Proud Boys, known internally as the Rally Boys, would resort to unlawful conduct to achieve an objective. Really? That's interesting, because I thought they were the good guys. I thought that they were fighting against Antifa and BLM, the dangerous criminals, the people who were committing the crimes. That's strange. Anyway, I digress. Donohoe's plea deal also notes that he, quote, understood that the purpose of the rally in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021 was to stop the certification of the Electoral College vote. And, quote, at least as early as January 4, 2021, and prior to Donohoe's decision to travel to DC, Donohoe was aware that members of the MOSD leadership were discussing the possibility of storming the Capitol. Donohoe believed that storming the Capitol would achieve the group's goal of stopping the government from carrying out the transfer of presidential power. Donohoe understood that storming the Capitol would be illegal. So that MOSD group is the Ministry of Self-Defense. The Proud Boys created this group that it would only encompass, it would only include certain leaders, and that they were to follow orders no matter what. If they had a problem with that, then they would be kicked out of that group. And this was, in the lead up to January 6th. So the document goes on to confirm that following the arrest of Enrique Tarrio, who was the then chairman of the Proud Boys, Donohoe directed everyone in leadership to delete their encrypted messages. And it says that he knew that their messages, quote, included discussion of unlawful activity to take place in Washington, D.C. on and around January 6. And Donohoe also knew, it says, that the plan was to obstruct the certification of the Electoral College vote, quote, through the use of force and violence in order to show Congress that we, the people, were in charge. In addition, the agreement notes that shortly after noon on January 6th, Proud Boys leadership gathered their members and, quote, were searching for an opportunity to storm the Capitol. And their opportunity, they say, came, ironically, in the area known as Peace Monument or Peace Circle. You guys have probably seen this video. It was an infamous video at this point that really captures an angry, violent mob, and they're attacking the gates. They're shaking these gates that the cops had erected. And there was a female officer that fell because they were shaking them so violently. She was holding on to them. She hit her head. She sustained a concussion. She was later taken to the hospital because she passed out while she was trying to arrest one of Trump's domestic terrorists. Well, that incident at Peace Circle was basically the first breach that was made by the Proud bigots and other people. But that one breach is what allowed and incited thousands of people to storm the Capitol. And Donahoe's plea deal mentions some other details also that haven't been made public yet. So, for example, it states that there were other Proud Bigot members who were sending messages through an encrypted app around this time. We knew that, but there were some that they didn't lay out in detail. One read, quote, "Push inside, find some eggs and rotten tomatoes." Well, Donohoe was the one who received that message, and then he replied, quote, "We are trying." And then the document also reveals that Donohoe threw water bottles at a line of officers, and then it mentions other physical altercations that other Proud Bigots initiated with the police. So this is the document that outlines everything that Donohoe agrees and admits to as part of the plea agreement. And as part of his plea, he also has agreed to take polygraph tests, to testify before any grand juries, to provide information, truthfully. If he's not truthful, then the whole deal is off. Well, Donahoe's crimes that he's admitting to come with a maximum punishment of up to 11 years, and then also up to $250,000 in fines. But because he's agreed to cooperate, the prosecutors are recommending a sentence of approximately 6 to 7 years, within that range. And surprisingly, Donahoe doesn't have any previous criminal convictions. I find that very hard to believe, because you guys may remember this. I mentioned this in his arrest video, his arrest profile video, that he was one of the Proud Bigots who would go and attend LGBTQ events, specifically to harass the people at those events. I mean, there's just no reason. Unless you're insecure about your sexuality, you wouldn't bother. That's all I got to say. So we see you, Donohoe. We see you, Proud Bigots. And there's a video of this guy, of Donohoe, following and trying to intimidate a female attendee at one of those events. So the fact that he might be off the streets for 6 to 7 years, I find that to be a huge win for society. This guy clearly has issues. But the other news that I wanted to mention that recently broke is related, and it's that DC Attorney General Karl Racine recently added new defendants to the lawsuit that he brought against the Proud Bigots and the Oath Keepers, and the Oath Breakers, I should say. He filed an amended complaint, and now it includes other defendants like Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes. Also, he included other Oath Breakers and Proud Bigots, Edward Vallejo, Joseph Hackett, Donald Marshall, Brian Ulrich, and Matthew Green. Another bit of related news is that the homes of 2 Proud Bigot members were raided last month, and that's in relationship to the January 6th investigation. So the first one was the home of North Carolina Proud Boys member Jeremy Bertino. His home was raided on or about March 8th, from what I can gather, and he's said to have close ties to the leadership in the Proud Bigots. He was recorded also at an anti-lockdown, COVID denial event. And also they combined it with the 2020 election protest. And he was heard and seen yelling through a bullhorn. Someone recorded him. And he said, quote, "America will never be a communist nation. Never. Your side will lose. We will exterminate you like the rats that you are. Exterminate you." Communism. They keep using this word. I do not think it means what they think it means. Seriously, I guarantee you, if you walked up to any of these fools and asked them what communism is, explain to me what communism means, not the idea you have of it, but the actual definition of communism, they could not tell you. They absolutely could not tell you. But anyway, this Bertino guy is the one who was stabbed. He was, you guys probably remember, there was a Trump rally also in DC. This was in December of 2020. So before the attack on the Capitol, they held another Trump rally, and he got into it with some Antifa people, or I don't know who it was. But anyway, he got stabbed, and he was allegedly part of the leadership team that was helping to make the plans for January 6th. In fact, according to government documents, they say Bertino was considered to be a second-tier regional leader. And this was in regard to the January 6th planning teams. And the government says that Bertino was one of two proud bigots who urged other members to breach the Capitol, including that message that I just mentioned to you guys that was sent to Donohoe saying, get in there, find the rotten tomatoes. Well, Bertino was apparently still healing from his stab wound. So he actually wasn't in DC on January 6th. He didn't physically take part in the attack. So he hasn't yet been arrested. He hasn't yet been charged. But I mean, we can look at Enrique Tarrio. He also wasn't there and he was inevitably charged. So we'll see. But his encrypted messages are included in all of these indictments with these other proud bigots. In one message, Bertino allegedly wrote, quote, all in caps, by the way, "Do not go home. We are on the cusp of saving the Constitution. Stay the ground, patriots." Then in another message following Trump's, what I consider his hostage video, where he reluctantly tells his supporters to go home, Bertino allegedly wrote, quote, "This is not about Trump. This is about the Constitution. STFU, so shut the fuck up, with your go home. Either get on board or fuck off, half-ass patriots." Then on January 7th, or I guess it was late at night on the 6th, early in the morning on the 7th, I'm not 100% sure, but apparently he went on Rumble and he was boasting that lawmakers were, quote, hiding behind their seats, cowering in fear. And he wrote, quote, "Because this today, while it could have gone all the way, this was a fucking warning. You don't have enough men or ammo to stop Americans if we want to take it back. Mark my fucking words. You don't have enough. There will be one behind every blade of fucking grass. You better believe it. If that didn't show you enough tonight, what we're capable of, keep pushing us. Keep fucking with us. You've been fucking around for years. Today you found out. There's not enough people to stop us, and we've proven it today. Had we just had some leadership there to take the reins and say, no, we're not leaving this building, we're staying. And if you bring violence, violence will be returned. So he sounds like a pleasant fella, doesn't he? And, this reminds me of the guy I've told you guys about on the left winger who was arrested for much less and sentenced to, I think it was over 4 years for just telling people to go and protect Capitol buildings around the country and speaking in a hyperbolic manner. So if this guy doesn't end up getting arrested, I just don't even know what to say. Anyway, back to this report. The other person whose home was raided was another proud bigot. This was now a Pennsylvania man who was also said to be in leadership. This person was listed in all of these indictments only as person 3. And apparently he uses the online alias of Johnny Blackbeard. So a Pennsylvania news outlet, it's a outlet called the Lancaster Online. They did some digging and they allege that this Johnny Blackbeard is actually a man named John Charles Stewart. So person 3's home, allegedly Stewart's home, was raided the same day as Bertino. And according to the government documents, Enrique Tarrio put this person 3 in charge of the operations for the January 6th plan, along with proud bigot Zachary Rell. And then they also say that person 3, presumably Stewart, urged other members to focus on the U.S. House of Representatives on January 6th. And you may recall this as well. There was a voice message to the leadership group. So on an encrypted messaging app, he left a voicemail message and he said, quote, "So we can ignore the rest of these stages and all that shit and plan the operations based around the front entrance to the Capitol building." Then in response, and this is what you might remember, Tarrio wrote, quote, "You want to storm the Capitol?" Now, I assume it was meant as a question and I read it as a question, but it was written without a question mark. So take that for what it's worth. Now, as with Bertino, Stewart, or whoever this person 3 is, has not been arrested. They haven't been charged with a crime related to January 6th. And according to another Proud Bigot member, Stewart wasn't in DC on January 6th because he was also dealing with some sort of health issue. So we'll see what comes of all this. I do find it interesting and more than a coincidence that Bertino and Donohoe would have been in the same Proud Bigot chapter together. And then shortly after Bertino's home was raided, Donohoe says, "Oh, I guess I'll take a plea deal." It brings up questions like, is Bertino cooperating with the feds? Is that why he hasn't been arrested? Did they find maybe smoking gun evidence against Donohoe in Bertino's home or maybe on his devices? And that forced his hand, or did Donohoe think, oh God, someone else is going to get the jump on me. I better take the first conspiracy plea deal, because we all know the first person to flip in leadership, especially, usually gets the best deal. Anyway, I'll let you guys know when I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.